got it.
All right. All right. What do you guys think about when you see vibrational copywriting? Does it sound woo-woo to you? What comes to your mind?
Well, you know what comes to my mind is something authentic that cuts through the BS tropey direct response, something you can't fake, something that has a high frequency, meaning you're not fucking lying. That's what comes to mind.
So there's definitely that aspect to it. If I were to answer it, this is where creative comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So, God, way back in 2014, I think it was, I wrote about the Akashic Records. You familiar with that term?
Yep.
Yep.
Nikola Tesla called the same thing the ether. Quantum physicists call it the 0 point. But there's information surrounding us constantly. This is consciousness. So when you have an idea out of nowhere, that's not out of nowhere. You've been subconsciously back processing it and having a conversation with energy, with vibration. And that is what materializes the physical ideas, the ideas that you are going to write. And so this is very different than just sitting down and writing.
Right.
Remember, write 20% of it. You don't have to be an amazing writer to be an amazing copywriter. Dig that for a second. Because it's not actually you coming up with the ideas. The ideas are coming through you. Mario, when we did this the last time, I talked about Chris Cornell. Do you remember that?
Yep.
So Chris Cornell was driving in his car and he was back processing his own emotion, just about life. And he is driving, and boom, he hears the words and the guitar riff of Black Hole Sun. He wrote the fucking thing in his head. And he heard it. And he recorded, the idea so he wouldn't forget, but he never listened to it because he was tapped into the essence. And the essence was coming through him and it wouldn't let him forget. You ever have that experience when you're tapped into something, the essence so much? You don't need to look back at your interview. You don't need to look back at your notes. You are tapped and tuned in so much that you can't help it but come through you. Have you had that experience?
It's 1,000% true. My best ideas have come randomly like lightning when I'm in the shower, when I'm driving, when I'm at the gym, when I'm in that alpha wave state and that wall goes down and the subconscious opens and the ideas just literally come to me to the point where I'm either pulling over, I'm grabbing my phone out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my God, I have to write that down. And it's a big contrast to how I was when I started, where I just sat down and wrote. I would have a doc early on. I would, do the whole Steph and Georgie. Here's my doc. Here's my whatever it is. And here's my new doc where I'm just sitting down and writing. And that would never work because the ideas were shit,
When you are tapped into the essence of something, like right now, I'm writing for a bunch of different things beyond our stuff, the stuff with Ella, with Sean. I love writing because it's not hard, because I tap into the essence, into the vibration frequency of what it is that I'm writing about. And right here, everything is energy. I'm tapping into the energy. I've told you both this story. I'm going to tell it again. My first multi-million-dollar idea came in the middle of Castle Lake on a swim.
Wow.
And it hit me so hard, the information coming through me, The back processing was done. And this was after a month of writing something that was way out of my understanding, my knowledge, my awareness. It was a financial conversation, and I had never even written financial copy at that time. This was at the beginning of my career.
Wow.
And I was fumbling all around. When I got that idea in the middle of Castlereagh, jammed down home and wrote what ended up running for 10 years in a couple hours. So what went from a whole month of fumbling around because I wasn't tapped into any type of essence, I was trying to intellectualize and cerebralize it. When I stopped doing that is when the real magic happened. That's when I realized this is not about me. This copywriting thing, this isn't about me. This is all about getting out of my own way, doing the deep dive, but knowing I'm not responsible for figuring out where all that momentum is going. It's going to marinate, back process in the subconscious through the enteric nervous system, through my interaction with the 0 point, which is constant, which is a webinar in and of itself. Y'all want to learn how to manifest? I will show you how to collapse a wave function into a particle of your deliberate choosing, instead of collapsing the wave function based on an old story you're telling yourself or the negative bias about the future, which is constantly collapsing the wave function down based on where your attention is directed. You can only move towards something, never away. Always remember that. And the same goes for creative. You can't think about the problem. In other words, I'm not coming up with any good ideas. I don't know how to enter the conversation. I don't know how to harness the level of emotion the top control is utilizing, and I don't know how to beat it. None of those questions and all those insecurities, none of them matter. What matters is connecting with the energy, the vibration, essence. Because ideas are energy. When you connect with the energies, the ideas automatically manifest in the back processing, all based on your research, asking the right questions. You do have to ask the right questions, which goes back to even what I wrote in my post yesterday, knowing more than everybody else in the room about the subject you're writing for the people that you want to reach, for the people that you want to help see themselves in so that you can help them. Does that make sense?
Yep. I love it. And that's another way I also tap into is like early on, I kind of struggled to tap into the female essence. So what I did is I had to literally do so much research and back processing that their emotional state became mine. And I could literally tap into the story they were telling themselves. Why did the relationship fail? Why did he become a ghost? Why is he pulling away? Why is he not noticing me anymore? I had to become them. And that doesn't happen until you tap in, step back, and back process. Then it just comes to you,
Do you remember Mario? Okay. One of the things on this slide, what if your ideas don't have to be your own?
Mm-hmm.
One of the most important things that you can do as any type of creative that's in business to help people, that's how we make the most money, is getting out of your way, not owning a single one of those ideas. They're not yours. They're simply coming through you. You are the conduit. You're the medium. Your fingertips are the executioner as they hit the keyboard and manifest the vibration you're tapped into. This is very different than I, Mark Pichetti, am writing this. I'm great. I'm a god. Bullshit. Practice the art of unattachment for 2 reasons. Have you ever had an experience, and every copywriter has, so don't lie, when something bombed and it was devastating? Ouch. Viscerally hurts. You had that experience? I have.
Yep, because you're attached, right? And that's when it
Because
hurts.
you're attached. Because you think this copy is what's going to work. And if it doesn't work, you're devastated because you feel like this is the best I can do. When in reality, it's just one possibility. And the only reason why it feels like it's the best you can do is you're so focused on it. You're owning it. You're internalizing it as if it is a reflection of your self-worth. Nothing you write is a reflection of your self-worth, good or bad, effective or not effective. Can we agree on that now?
Yep. The complete Yoda philosophy.
But it's a philosophy that has real world implications, because when you do write something that doesn't work, you need to be able to adjust quickly. And if you're attached to it, you have to go through the process of trauma and letting go. And you're also developing PTSD around copy, about writing copy, because now it's like, oh shit, if that failed, anything I write could fail. Maybe what I'm writing right now will fail. Well, that's just ego. And that's telling a story that's running towards everything you don't want, which is why if you just stay unattached from what comes through you, then you will have no devastation and you will be able to pivot quickly. I've told this story before, but it's another example of this. Aaron Brabham, the guy who wrote Obama third term for Sanders, Porter, he's good friend with Porter. He knows Porter inside and out. He understood the offer inside and out, wrote a fantastic VSL. And guess what happened when it launched? It bombed. The most successful financial VSL in history bombed. Aaron's at Porter's house. They're partying. We're copywriters. We're hedonists. And Aaron said something, and Porter's like, hold on, I'll be right back. 20 minutes later, comes back with a new lead.
Yeah.
The first couple of pages, 2.5 pages, I think.
Yeah.
And that went on, and nothing else in the VSL was changed. Everything else was the same. That lead ended up being what became the control and ran for 4 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Which for a financial offers churn and burn so fast. But this was evergreen information about cracking infrastructure, something that was relevant for a long time. And it was only because Porter got that out of nowhere idea, because they've been both back processing. So when Aaron said something that triggered an essence, Porter concentrated on that essence and had to run away from the party, isolate himself for 20 minutes, and come back out with something that did over $1 billion.
Fucking love it.
Tapping into an essence, that's what happens. It's quick, it's effortless, and amazing.
Yep. And just to add to that too, it's the main reason why some nights I'll even jump out of bed at 4 a.m. and I'll write a lead. It's like, where did that come from? You know?
So right here is getting into the how, into the mechanism of vibrational copywriting. Everything has to have a mechanism, right? Why?
Well, my explanation of it, why everything has to have a mechanism, is has to be the reason why it's the only thing that can get them there, else it's not unique and I'm going somewhere else.
If something works, then there's a reason why it works.
Right.
And very simply and persuasively tell me why something works, you're helping me do what?
See myself in the copy and show me how it could work for me, right? Solve my issue.
Absolutely. Which is allowing me to suspend my disbelief, because now I'm future pacing myself because of you.
Yeah.
That's how easy it is. Now, how do you listen? Well, remember how we talked about the cerebral way that most copywriters approach writing copy?
Yeah, that's how I did for the first 2-3 years, the trap.
If you look at Alan's Nothing Held Back group, there's a ton of cerebral intellectualizing going on there, because everything's broken down into nuance. Now, what he teaches in that group and the way that he approaches UX, user experience strategies on carts and upsells, extremely viable. But if you don't have the basic foundation on how to know to write a mechanism, none of that shit matters.
Yeah.
And by the way, when you get really good at it, you don't need a lot of these tricks. You just need somebody who understands UX so that your copy can have the easiest path of least resistance to purchase. So how to take the second brain. This is the non-cerebral brain. This is the brain that's really controlling what your first brain thinks and feels. Because your hormones, how do you make a hormone? Bend over, bitch. How do you make a hormone? $500, bitch. How do you make a hormone? Hey, baby. How do you make a hormone? No, I won't do it anymore. So the second brain has mirror neurons, just like the first brain, and it's constantly interacting with the 0 point, with the Akashic records, with consciousness, with the ether. All this energy out there that we are all reacting to and creating instantaneously and simultaneously with no beginning or end. All you're doing is taking a surfboard and putting it in front of a vibrational wave. And you know that vibrational wave is what's going to get the most people to raise their hands. So what are you looking for in your second brain? Your second brain is giving you guidance. It's your compass. It's guiding you to the essence. The more you get out of the way, the more you feel the essence of the problem the people you want to help are experiencing, the more you feel the essence, let's say it's a supplement, of the hero ingredient, of the supporting characters, the more you connect with the essence of the ultimate core problem you are helping people solve and what achieving that can do in my life. Well, what did it do in your life? You have something you can tell me I can mirror neuron with? Because my gut is listening to yours. My second brain is listening to yours. That is how I'm going to see myself in you. That's what she said. Or was it? Anyways, wow, maybe she pegs. I don't know. But but it's listening to all the hormones that are going on in here, going through the vagus nerve and communicating and saying yes, no. That's it. When you're tapped in, it's a yes. When you're tapped out, and I don't mean UFC, it's a no.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And just to add to that real quick too, that's one thing you helped me do is now when I watch a VSL or when I'm editing, not only first do I create distance and come back to it, but I don't intellectualize why something's good or bad. I watch it and I say, does this feel off or feel on? And we have a razor sharp BS detector, and you can literally feel when something's off, when maybe the story's not unfolding properly. Maybe they're using too much hyperbole. Maybe they're exaggerating. Either way, you can feel when something's off, you know?
At the last video shoot I did to produce a infomercial VSL, I was listening. I'm there with my keyboard and I'm just listening to everybody talk, because usually the actors are getting into the shoot. And I pick people that have a unique connection with the conversation from backstage. So I'm listening to them and they'll say something and I'll feel the essence, the vibration of it. And all of a sudden I'm just writing. I'm not even thinking about it. I can have a conversation with you and my fingertips are going because it's coming through me. I don't need to think about it.
No,
it's a waste
still
of time.
There. I think it froze up.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
No,
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. So listening to the hormones, listening to how you're mirror neuroning with information with the people that you're wanting to help is going to lead you to the right questions. The right questions lead you to a more honed in problem and solution, how you're going to enter the conversation, what symbols or story you're going to mechanize or new cause so that I can see myself in why everything failed or why this can work for me. Questions on that? Because this is actually a very deep rabbit hole and we're just skimming the surface. But
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to add to that too. Early on, it's something that, you know, sort of revolutionized the way I write leads too, because before it was too intellectual, but now I'm doing what you're saying, where I'm letting the symbols come to me. Like, not only am I anchoring their emotional state, but I'm thinking what symbols are the most resonant to that person, right? What is going to shortcut that mental heuristic and allow them to see themselves in my copy in the first 3 to 5 seconds? And almost no copywriters on the planet, no one's teaching this, first of all, but no one knows how to do it except a select few.
And what you just said, Mario, is hitting the fucking nail on the head, because this is what makes you a constantly growing copywriter, because the more you do something, the easier it gets. That's the reps.
Yeah.
Since I've known you, your whole style has transformed and it's a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
You can feel your copy is tapped in. The stuff that you were doing for the other dude, what's his name, Caleb?
Caleb, he lived with Gary Halbert, so he's another OG, you know.
And the stuff that you wrote for him, you know, it's like you were tapping into this essence and you were able to put it into different leads, into different tones and conversations, different ways of basically saying the same thing, but different opportunities for me, the person reading, watching, to raise my hand. And figuring, and you know, I'm a data slut, dataslut.com. It's having those variables and going through those variables and eliminating what you know won't work before even launch and test the new copy. You know that, okay, these ones are reflecting the essence. I can feel it when I read it. I can just get right back into it. And when you do that, you know that you're testing something extremely viable, so that when you're looking at data, it's easier to adjust. It's easier to listen to your second brain. You know, when I tell you I don't remember what I wrote yesterday, well, it's not a lie, because remember, I stay that unattached.
Yeah,
You know,
I love it.
Be like, oh, that's good. Or, huh. Like if I'm not tapped into it when I read it, it's just, that's interesting.
I love it. I love it. And just to add to that real quick too, we mentioned this last time, but freestyle rappers like Travis Scott couldn't believe that Jay-Z, he thought freestyling was a myth. So he couldn't believe that Jay-Z sat there and freestyled an entire album. Yep. Right. And when they asked Jay-Z about it, he talks about how, look, if I sit down and actually write it, it ruins the purity of my process. Now I'm intellectualizing it, you know?
And so you're smarter than you think. Play on words. Because the second brain is where infinite intelligence comes from. And no matter how much you train the first brain, it will never be as smart as your second brain is the moment you were born until the moment you die. This is where the majority of your information is coming from. So when you absorb things through your first brain, it's affecting the second. And this antenna and this receiver and this compass, this navigation system, is having communications with this, and all that is out here, where all the vibration essence that we get tapped into is there. The same essence Chris Cornell tapped into, the same essence the deaf Beethoven tapped into. He couldn't hear, but he could hear vibrationally. He could feel it, and it came through. Another great example of how our senses are really culminating in one place, regardless of what senses we're using the most to get there. Whether it's smell, taste, sight, sound, touch, you know, there's different ways to tap into an essence. It's same with sex. If you're having the same sex with the same person every time you fuck, you're not tapped into the essence. If you're listening to the essence, your bodies are going to move and flow and jive in different ways every single time. Because you're not doing, oh, this is what makes me a good lover. You know, I'm going to go down on her, I'm going to make her come, and then I'm going to fuck her, and then I'm going to come.
Cringe,
boring.
Yeah.
You know, that regimented, then you're just going to get the same result. Well, the same thing with copy. If you approach it like, this is what I'm good at, and I just keep doing that, intellectualizing everything, your career is going to be very short-lived, and it's going to be very frustrating because it's going to feel like work, and you're going to fucking love getting paid, but hate every time you sit down in front of that white blank page. It's going to stare a hole into your soul.
Right. It's not fun when you write
But
that
you're
process.
is smarter than you think. So when you're absorbing the information, the subconscious is back processing, and all the mirror neuroning is back processing. So you're getting to that black hole sun. You're getting to that iconic next piece of advertising you're about to write. And you know it. You don't even know what it is, but you're tapped into it. And it's going to come through you soon. And you know that too. So you're not worried. You're either working on other client stuff or your own projects, or you're out there having fun and hopefully putting your dick in something wet. So that's what you get to do when you tap into this vibrational copywriting system. When you're harnessing and leveraging and tapping into infinite intelligence, the infinite intelligence you already have. Your side of it is, again, just asking the right questions and listening to the navigation of your gut to ask those right questions until you can hand it off to your subconscious and your gut to figure shit out while you do other things. Make sense, y'all?
Facts. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so here's what we're talking about. The mastering of the 80%. This is where the majority of your work is. Asking the right questions about the offer. Again, let's say it's a supplement. Asking the right questions about the supplement. How are you going to position the supplement? Because one ingredient can have a multitude of relevance in different health symptoms.
Right.
So how are you going to position it? Where are you going to go after the most market share?
Right. And just to add to that real quick, because you helped me with that too recently, with that lead I wrote for the mullein leaf. Okay. A good example was when I got your feedback and we went through it, and I repositioned a new lead for smoking because, hey, what's the highest watermark and the most urgent problem you can attack? Right. It's obviously smokers that can't breathe. Their lungs are clogged, you know?
And there's so many ways, you know, like after I read what you did, like people who want to quit, but can't because of all the nicotine. And when you stop putting new nicotine in, your body freaks out. Going through withdrawal. And the withdrawal is intense. The withdrawal is stressful. The withdrawal makes you lash out. The withdrawal pushes people away. The withdrawal gets you divorced. There's a lot of emotion in there that you could hit, right? But that's just that. There's infinite ways to reach people in a conversation. But when you're talking about lung health, but instead of just talking about lung health in general, with people who may have COPD or autoimmune inflammation, when you focus specifically on cigarette smokers, you know for a fact that they have a problem that you can help them with. And you can approach that from many different levels, really tapping into the archetype of a smoker. And then there's the smoker who wants to keep smoking more, but wants to feel like I'm not destroying myself as bad as I probably am. And you can tap into that emotion. That's a different way into the conversation. And it will get a lot of people to raise their hands that didn't raise their hand on the lead that you wrote. So there's so many ways to do the deep dive and understanding all of the different archetypes within the conversation. A smoker is one of the archetypes in the long conversation. Yes.
Right. And to add to this, you're going to love this one too. Remember a while ago, you sent me some copy you wrote in the silver niche for like the alkaline silver. And I read a few different versions, and then I asked you which one performed the best. And it was yeast, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that also gave me sort of a light bulb moment where it ties back in everything you're saying, where yeast just happened to be the most emotional, urgent problem. And it happened to be a way to position the lead in a way that could reach the maximum amount of people where they're like, yep, that's me,
And there was more thinking behind that.
Yeah.
One of the biggest, I had actually a few years earlier tried to get another supplement company to get into that space, the yeast infections. because I saw it being a big market that is an everyday issue for many women and now many men. And
50 cents.
that worked the best was actually 70% of female yeast infections are caused by your male partner who's asymptomatic.
Wow.
You just keep spreading it back and forth. And so it cultures, grows. And he may not have symptoms like red spots and rashing and burning, UTI sensation, urinary tract. And it was actually adding the urinary tract conversation that increases conversions. Because UTIs are so associated with a lot of women who have yeast infections. They can go hand in hand.
Incredible.
But it was understanding that this audience was underserved.
Yeah.
And that there wasn't very much marketing going after them. And so it was a lot of low-hanging fruit that didn't have a lot of new cause. In other words, I know exactly what they tried and what didn't work, and it's only a few things.
Right.
So the conversation was very simple. The 80% was very simple. Asking the right questions was very simple. And then the back processing is what led me to why exactly in romantic relationships, new and ongoing, why are yeast infections a repercussion of sex? When I asked that question, that led me to the stat of 70% or 75%, whatever it was.
Right. Like hyper-specific questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then back processing them, number 3. Yeah. Because intellectually, you hit a wall, right? That's when I say there's only so much information you can absorb. You hit that wall. When you hit a wall, just fucking walk away. You've got plenty. Now, after you back process that, if it's still not clear, then you go back to step 1, deep dive, asking the right questions, then back processing, and you'll get there. And you can do that within the context of an hour, the time of an hour, going through step 1, step 2, step 3, until this magic moment when it just comes through you, like Black Hole Sun and Chris Cornell, like what is it? Everflow and Foo Fighters. What's his name? Got his name.
I'm not sure, man. I'm only a rap music guy.
So, in that magic moment, that's what happened to me in Castle Lake. When I got out of the way, instead of intellectualizing it, I gave myself space to back process. Instead of, I gotta figure this out. I gotta figure it out. Oh my God. When I had plenty of information and I hit that wall, I went swimming. And then it came through.
Alpha waves while you're swimming, essentially. Yeah.
So everything's going to come down to mechanism and new cause, how it works, why everything else didn't work. Even in the yeast conversation, why fluconazole didn't work, which is a prescription. Why antibiotics didn't work. Well, antibiotics are likely the reason you're here in the first place, because it destroyed your microbiome, making it susceptible to yeasts, candida moving in, which are 100 times larger than your good bacteria. They take up a lot of space. And they grow by the millions per minute.
Right.
A lot of emotion.
And just to add to this too, this is another thing that helped me tremendously with tapping into the essence. And almost no copywriter gets this right. So they don't do the 80% first of all, but they do not even isolate their mechanism and new cause to such a precise level where they know it and it's stuck in their brain, and then they create the distance, right? So that's the biggest reason. Here's
the silver mechanism: the structured alkaline water dissolves the biofilm. That's the antibiotic resistant shield that makes people's lives, women's lives, a living fucking hell, because the treatments don't get through that biofilm. That biofilm was intelligent and figured out how to beat them. It evolved. So since antibiotics were created and penicillin came out in 1932, the biofilm has been, okay, I'll figure this out. Now you give it certain antibiotics, penicillin, Cipro, tetracycline, no effect. By 2050, 10 million people a year are going to die from a common cold because antibiotics don't work once the infection kicks in, the bacterial infection, beyond the viral infection. People are going to die from that, just like they did before antibiotics. and it's going to suck. New cause. Oh, and then the second part of this mechanism, two-pronged mechanism, the silver ion neutralizes the candida. It pokes a hole in it, pops it like a balloon, makes a puddle out of it, and then you piss and shit it out. So, and one silver ion, another new cause here is specifically people who have used colloidal silver. And no, colloidal silver is toxic. It is toxic. It's acid, and it metabolizes in the skin and lymph. That's why people turn gray and blue when they ingest too much. The structured alkaline doesn't metabolize. It goes straight through. One silver ion in colloidal can only neutralize one candida cell. One silver structured ion can neutralize tens of thousands.
You know what I love so much about what you just said is this, man. First off, any copywriter that tries to write in these health niches, first of all, they just flat out suck cock and don't know shit about health. Okay, they haven't read the books about health, right? They don't know the mechanisms. They don't know anything. So what you're saying is you understand how the body works and how the mechanism works on such a deep level that you're able to paint a simple picture using symbols. Yep. That's the game-changing aspect of it, that all these other copywriters, they can use. So since they don't know this stuff on this deep level, what do? Hyperbole, false claims, big ideas. The copy's not mechanized. It's bullshitized, you know?
Stefan Georgi teaches hook-based, big idea-based copy. I teach mechanism copy. He does teach mechanism. I've seen some of his stuff, and some of it's pretty good. Not, he's not all bad. I'm sure he's a cool dude in real life.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I don't think he's bad, but I think if we wrote live, I'd beat him right now,
I totally agree. As an advertiser, he's stuck in the fear-based direct response world of agitation, problem, agitate, solve type that he redid in his own way. But for the structured alkaline, the new cause is simple. And here's a symbol. Here is a candida cell. Here's what's causing your yeast infection. Do you see this glowing, sludgy thing around it? That's biofilm. That's why you keep getting these yeast infections. That's why nothing works. So now that symbol's doing a lot of heavy lifting. And it's just the other mechanism. Very simple.
Genius. It's a shortcut. And I've seen you do the same thing in the dating niche. And it's also helped me understand like dynamics where you did it with the 3 circles, like the intertwining, too much intertwining, and then not enough intertwining where they're like a ghost versus being codependent. That it's a mental shortcut. Instantly made sense.
Ella taught me what the 3 circles are called. I forgot. The Venn chart or whatever.
It's like a Venn diagram, right?
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Mirror neurons, we talked about it. Your story is mine. So when I did 15-minute manifestation and I told my story, it was on the back of that story that a direct response campaign lasted strong in the top 5 spots in the spiritual space, but also the top 10 spots on all of ClickBank for about 5 years. And that was built on the back of my story because people were.
I love it.
And people are able to see themselves in my story because I was so vulnerable. So if you're going to help somebody tell their story, tap into the true essence of that vulnerability. What is the vulnerability essence? What are those words? Because the rawer you can tell a story, the easier it's going to be for me to see myself in it. Stories are also the best way to convey information. You go to a movie, you can learn so much through a story like Forrest Gump. Every time I watch that, I learn something or discover something because the character is so relatable. No, I'm not that type of, I have different mental issues, but I can mirror neuron with his innocence, with his desire to help, to be there for the people he loves unconditionally. That's a lot of information being conveyed, and stories convey that information. And that's how you get people to see themselves in you, in your story, in your offer, in your results, and other people's results.
Right. It's like how when we talk about Christopher Nolan and The Dark Knight, like why was The Dark Knight so good? And this is literally the reason why. It's not only does it start at the peak of the action, but you see yourself in Christian Bale. You even see yourself in the Joker, and no one wants to admit that, you know.
Oh no, I mirror on more with the Joker than
Me too. Me too. Yeah.
Anarchy makes sense to me.
It does. It does.
Metaphor, sun and cloud. So the metaphor here is from Tesla code. Now, in self-help, self-development, and manifestation, law of attraction, people are taught how to manifest. Manifesting is all you do. That's it. So why don't you have what you want? Well, let me tell you. Imagine the sun, right? You see it? Beautiful, beautiful, full, bright, luscious, warm sun. That right there, that's your natural state of abundance. Do you need to create that sun? No, it's always there. It's always shining. Now, what happens when clouds cover up the sun? Is the sun still there because you can't see it? Yeah. What are those clouds? Those are your limiting beliefs. The sabotaging story you're telling yourself about what you need to do to succeed, to win, to get out of the gate. Whatever you believe is true for you, but believe this. Maybe you don't need to manifest abundance, the sun. Maybe all you need to do is clear away those clouds so the sun can shine back in your reality. So your natural state of abundance can shine back into your reality. Metaphors are powerful. They can cut through and they're fraught with symbology. Use a good metaphor. You can, in one page, a half a page, replace 10 pages of copy with a strong metaphor.
Yep. Yeah. It's like what Lil Wayne said. Well, Lil Wayne, one of the kings of metaphors just in his raps, but a funny one that I always remembered, as he says, real G's move in silence like lasagna. Made me laugh.
Yep. And then the hero's journey, Rocky, the underdog story, what we have to go through, what we bump up against, what we break through in order to be here now telling you about this. That story is as archetypal as human existence, as ancient as human existence, as relatable as anything that we, the people, can do. Remember, heuristics is the psychology of storytelling. And we speak the language of storytelling no matter where we're from, what color our skin is or isn't, what religion we do or don't believe in. We all speak in the language of story. So tap into the story people are telling about the problem you can help them solve, and you will find infinite ways to enter the conversation. One of those ways being the hero journey of I was there and now I'm here. That's all it is. Make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Another thing is, I'm seeing it overdone, and you're going to love this probably, but like on ClickBank VSLs, like why is everyone starting with a horror story? It's become
I tried
so
the law of
overdone.
attraction. I spent a fortune on it.
It's true. And stories will always sell. And
Yeah.
this is just, this is the 50-minute manifestation. This is the
Seminars,
openings.
webinars, and books, and fell for every single make money online scam there is. And now I'm more broke and broken than ever before.
Said the struggling father of four.
I feel like there's an invisible force
And this
field.
opening
Stop.
was just different archetypal sound bites. If I were to do this now, I would get people from backstage to do it. I would create a much more infomercial type presentation.
Right. Another thing too, just to add to that before we
Me from
restart
receiving
it,
what
the
the
music.
universe.
Yep.
The music you chose is tapped in, like it fits with the tone, right? I noticed that a lot where people mess up the music they choose in their VSL because they're not tapped in, right? Like they'll have a heavy metal type music in the background for a VSL like that. It's like, what the hell are you doing?
Yep. And here I'm talking about what I just said backstage.
Mm-hmm.
When you put up a post on backstage for people to talk about your product, you need to interview them. I interview every person that I am interested in seeing more of, hearing more from. I want them to get excited about what we're doing. I want them to feel like it has consequence beyond just something new for their reel. Even though It's going to show, expose, reveal, demonstrate a much more vulnerable side of them. So we're able to tap into the raw emotion of people just speaking dog whistle sound bites. And they don't even have to make a single claim. They can then hand it off to Mark Pachetti, who's going to talk more about this. This is an amazing way to get ads, pre-roll, VSL openings for days.
For days.
So tap into the essence of every element, mechanism, new cause, the story. All of these things have an essence. The story people are telling, the ingredients, if it's a financial offer, the guru, the system, the little known thing that separates you from being a gambler and a real true investor who predictably appreciates their portfolio every day. So where are the highest watermarks of emotion? Mario, you talked about Alan having a different name for high watermark. What is it?
So he framed it as a gut shot.
A what?
A gut shot. Like he's like trying to punch you in the gut to get your attention. Like he's trying to basically, like just like Caleb says too, I'm trying to move you and shake you. I'm trying to hit the ground running in a way that bombs go off.
Gut shot I like, because that's actually where we're looking to impact is the second brain, gut.
Yeah.
That visceral. Now, does that mean you have to scare the shit out of people?
No.
Learn how to positively agitate. Also realize the brain doesn't hear a negative. So if you lead people to something that they're opposing and they put all of their attention on that, it can actually create resistance to purchase. But if you show them what life is like, if you're helping them release objections, you're helping them suspend their disbelief. There's only so much cortisol that people can handle. They need more dopamine than cortisol. And dopamine is what's going to be moving them through your VSL. And the opening is huge, just like I talked about with Stansberry, Obama third term. The first lead, no sales, nothing. And they could have just left it there and never, that didn't work. All that work down the drain. Nope, all they needed to do was tap into the essence. Porter did that, wrote the new lead, connected it with the rest of the VSL, and it worked. That's
it's like the opening in chess. It's like the opening in chess. Like I don't know if you play chess often, but I notice like sometimes I win or lose the whole match based off the first 3 to 5 moves because I set up the board in a certain way.
Oh, we're gonna have to play on chess.com.
Yeah.
Add me. I'm Fantasy Puppet.
Yeah.
So that's how big your opening is. Framing your story bridge from opening to offer mechanism is also that. New cause is also that. You can have different bridges from the one thing, the one problem, the one solution. The mechanism is the bridge to get there. Mechanizing your story is a good bridge to get there. New causing is a great way to get there, to introduce the mechanism in the offer. So lots of ways to do it. Face and voice. Hi, I'm Mark Pachetti, and I accidentally discovered how to make the most delicious iced tea. It's like, okay, the accidentally discovered thing works, but hey, I'm Mark Pachetti, and I created an iced tea that isn't just something you drink, but can replenish your cells, your mitochondria, energy factories, your ability to have more libido, to feel more attractive, to have more confidence. How can a drink do that? Well, it comes down to one ingredient from the deep, dark jungles in the Philippines. And I'm going to tell you what this ingredient is in a second. But first, why did I need to create something new? What was going on with me that I needed the solution? And why didn't my doctor help me? Why couldn't nutritionists help me? Why couldn't dietitians help me? Why did everybody fail to see the real problem causing my life-changing symptoms? Well, I'm going to tell you. But first, so you have that face and voice, somebody who's telling a story. It could be a doctor. It could be a financial expert. But the person speaking, if they have a certain level of credibility or can instantaneously attach themselves to credibility, like for instance, in a supplement offer I'm writing right now, I put at the end because we're still working on face and voice.
Yeah.
So at the end, I just gave an example. Hi, I'm Mark Pichetti. I'm a leading health influencer and grandson of the man who invented time release, bioavailability, and modern supplementation. So the next time you're taking a 12-hour cold medicine or just a basic multivitamin, that's Anthony Pichetti's gift to you in the world. That's my granddad's. I'm here taking his legacy even further by introducing his inventions to you and getting them into the hands of people who need them just like you. So here, face and voice is an open conversation still in this, but I am using that just as an example. We need something that's going to take this conversation, give it an extra layer of credibility that gives them that dopamine and gets them farther into the conversation. So,
and there's another thing you did there. I loved it because I can see, what you're doing with X-ray vision, but for people that don't get it, tell them a little bit about mechanizing that opening. What does that mean? How does someone come in and mechanize it? And why is that so much better than the Stephen Georgi hyperbolic type of opening? What does it mean to mechanize? What you did there was perfect.
Yeast infections are one of the most difficult things to get rid of, especially recurrent chronic yeast infections. I'm sure you already know this. I don't need to tell you that. But what you may not know is that this little sludgy thing that you see right here, it's called biofilm. And it's the reason why everything you've tried to get rid of your yeast infections didn't work. But today I'm going to show you how this water, this simple water, is going to be able to bust through that biofilm and help eradicate the overgrowth of yeasts where they begin inside of your gut. So if you have discharge, if there is odor coming from your vagina, if you are dealing with yeast infections every time you have intercourse, I'm going to tell you exactly why that's happening and exactly how to start eliminating recurrent chronic yeast infections in the future. So being able to I call it the Bill Clinton approach. Bill Clinton, when he gave speeches, he peeled back the curtain a little bit about what was really going on behind the scenes that manifests what you see in the media and in other places.
Monica Lewinsky's curtain. Yeah.
And so when I want to positively agitate, give people hope, but also hit the problem, there is a compliant way of doing it right there. Oopsies.
Yep. It's genius. Another thing you did that I love so much too is instead of starting on the peak of hyperbole, keep going.
I could say your yeast infections are a sign of something sinister happening inside of your gut right now. A more Stephen Georgi approach.
Yeah.
And it can work. But every time that you hit negative agitation like that hard, going for cortisol, you're not building a brand.
No.
What builds a brand is creating a sense of community, which is also a hormone that's not on this, but serotonin. Serotonin is that feeling of everything's going to be okay. And dopamine is what gets them to feeling okay. We're going to give them that blanket. It's going to be okay, baby. You smell good. No. So the essence of chemicals. So when we're hitting that hard cortisol objective, it creates an association of people of having stress. And ultimately, you don't want your campaign to feel stressful. You want it to feel hopeful. So as quickly as you can get to that positive agitation or the dopamine, which is why Facebook exists, which is why all social media exists, is the addiction to dopamine. It's that powerful. The world would not look the way it is and functions today without dopamine. We wouldn't care. We wouldn't post.
So triggering dopamine, Mark, remember a long time ago I asked you what's the best way to trigger dopamine? What would you say? Is it the positive outcome symbols? Is it showing them exactly what they want and dangling it? How would you break that down?
Well, if you tell people why something doesn't work, dopamine, because it's a reward. If you tell people why something does work, dopamine. If you tell them I was exactly where you are right now and I am here now because I did this, dopamine. If you say, if you don't follow the 3 steps that I'm about to reveal, you're going to remain broke, sick, tired, and die a horrible death. Being complete, you'll never get anything you ever wanted unless you follow exactly what I'm about to say. All right. So I'm trying to get the cortisol. These 3 steps are going to arm you with the exact 3D X-ray vision to see everything that you've been missing and why you're already the master manifester you've been trying to become. I'm going to tell you how and why, how to tap into it, and easily execute your master manifestation skills every single day in your work, financial life, freedom, relationships, everything. And you'll be healthier, happier, stronger, and more confident than ever when you discover this very, very simple system that I have used to produce over $2 billion. Hi, I'm Mark Fischetti. I'm a 9-figure copywriter. I'm also the grandson of one of the most famous inventors in health history, Anthony Fischetti, and blah, blah, blah. So, there's lots of ways into conversations and lots of ways to leverage cortisol and dopamine. You just need to, understand it. I went there. So the Tale of Two Futures. This is another big dopamine hit. And this is what you were asking Mario about, helping them see the future pacing, putting specific symbols and metaphors into people's minds so that they create an emotional attachment to that outcome. That's the dopamine reward. And then getting that outcome, the dopamine response, the carrot at the end of the stick, and then getting that outcome is another hit of dopamine. So it's like if you're doing for Be Her Addiction, we need to be constantly giving men new tools for dopamine hits that they can take out of the world. And that's going to keep them on churn longer.
Right. Essentially, the girl is responsive to you. She's laughing at all your jokes. She's constantly pushing to meet up with you. And then obviously without getting dirty, she's bouncing.
Well, now that you've tapped into the real communication happening between men and women, and quite frankly, every human being on this planet, pronouns not needed, you are able to influence and persuade her without ever opening your mouth. Remember, this goes way beyond body language. This is energetic communication. This is the communication always happening. And the fact that you didn't know it made you a predator to every single woman you ever talked with, even if she approached you. But now you're able to be that safe, calm, confident alpha that makes women from all walks of life, blah, blah, blah. I won't get crude, but you'll understand. So that's it. What do you guys think? Any final questions, comments? Alex, you've been pretty quiet. What are your thoughts on all this?
Now, 1 second. I was about to step real quick. That's all good. Yeah, it's great stuff, man. Yeah, I guess just trying to think how I could apply it to the different niches that I'm working with, or
you can apply it to anything, because all you're doing is asking questions. You're listening to your gut as it navigates you. And then once you tap into a specific essence, you're nurturing that essence, you're back processing it, and you're sitting down when it's easily coming through you. That's it.
Right. Alex, try this, okay? And it helped me early on when I was first training with Mark, is early on I struggled with advertorials, right? And Mark said this thing about, well, look, you didn't turn the dial from a VSL to a news like advertorial, and a news like essence and tone is completely different than a hard-hitting VSL. Right now, it's the same thing when I don't know if you like Star Wars, but almost everybody agrees that sequel trilogy that Disney put out, although there was some cool stuff in those movies and they're cool in a vacuum, it was not tapped into the Star Wars essence at all. It was completely off. Now, some parts were on, but it was completely off. But they kind of course corrected and fixed themselves with the Obi-Wan show Would you agree, Mark? It was mostly tapped back in to the George Lucas-like essence, you know?
Not only that, but Ewan McGregor was tapped into the Obi-Wan character.
Yes.
I
yes.
believe he is Obi-Wan.
He is Obi-Wan. It's on, yes, 100%.
Anthony, what's your...
He has a question here.
Where's a...
He said, how can I manage the amount of problems, terrible stories that I use in my VSL to be careful about if the prospect is feeling hope or just sadness?
Well, and that's Anthony, that's as simple as tapping into the essence of what they're going to be hopeful for. So what are you moving them towards? Where are you putting their attention? The more you're able to put their attention on one thing, even if that one thing has different manifestations, like if I have financial freedom, these are the images of financial freedom. If I want good gut health and no yeast infections, these are what I'm doing when that problem is no longer a part of my life. Or when I focus on the problem, the cortisol, the agitation, these are the things that are not available to me, like having a healthy sex life, which is huge for women.
Right. And just to add to that, Anthony, I think I can help you too, is early on, when I would write stories, and then Mark can kind of attest to this too, is like I would write these just generic stories. But one thing that helped me would be actually not making up the story, right? Like I would go in forums, I would find recurring patterns of like what people are really struggling with. Like what's the number one overarching thing people are struggling with? Now for women in the dating niche, it's always usually a low emotional state, and they're saying, why did he leave me? Why did he ghost me? Why did my forever love disappear? So when you find a story that resonates, you can use that story. So you don't have to make up and manage stories and make up bullshit. Like finding a real story that is an overarching theme, it's recurring. That helps a lot.
And tapping into the essence of that. Another great way to do that is look at other products on Amazon and look at the reviews. What words are people using? What overarching stories are they telling? How can you tap into the essence of that in the first 5 seconds of your VSL? And
love it.
Do 15 different ways, because you don't know which one's going to work and you don't care.
Love
You're not one will, and you know you'll do it. That's it. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. All right, guys, I have to get on another call soon. I appreciate it. I will post this, and got lots more of these things coming. And in fact, we can even go dive deep down this rabbit hole with just looking at a single script and going through it with this vibrational copywriting perspective, and see what essences we're tapped into, which ones are fuzzy, the frequency's off, which ones are spot on. Ooh, I felt that in my gut. That's what we're looking for. All right, guys, we'll talk later. Appreciate it, everybody. Anthony, Alex, Mario.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right, later.